My thoughts on Invincible Fight Girl, Season 1.
In this world, wrestling is everything.
That line holds a lot of weight because Keith David is not lying about what he just said. Literally everything in this world is wrestling. Even the damn earth is shaped like a damn bicep. In this show, we follow our main character, Andy Smith, who wants to be like her idol, Queso Poblana. However, due to her upbringing and where she comes from, everything in her life is about accounting, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be a wrestler like Queso Poblana. And you can see that's not the path she wants to follow just based on how the clothes don't even fit her. So after some assholes with incredibly well-kept hair destroy the town, Andy decides to step into her own and actually take up the mantle of being a wrestler, with some pep talking from Queso Poblana, but she doesn't know that yet. So after the first episode, we can already see the inspirations that this show is taking from. It is heavily anime inspired. You can tell just by the way the sound effects are, the animation, the exaggerated poses, the internal monologue. Everything in this show is so heavily anime inspired, and that's why I love it so far. Again, literally the next episode, we immediately get more signs of the anime inspiration with Queso Poblana literally pulling out fucking Conqueror's hockey. It's literally, I can't call it anything else. It's Conqueror's hockey. Everyone's fainting. Everyone can't even move. It's Conqueror's. This show is so anime inspired, and it's right in front of our faces. So after Queso Poblana puts everyone in check, Andy and her parents finally have a heart-to-heart moment where Andy is finally vulnerable about who she wants to be. And her parents, standoffish at first, finally accept her for who she wants to be. And the classic call to adventure happens where she leaves her home and follows the hero's journey in the outside world. Flash forward. So after meeting some zany characters, some cool characters, and some really annoying characters, we get led to Queso Poblana's household so that Andy can be taught the art of wrestling by her idol.
12 seconds later. And
immediately fails. Right off the bat in this episode, we get to see how the show really uses its slapstick humor. And this scene actually gave me a few chuckles. Like, they're really good with the humor in this. So after breaking and entering into an elderly woman's home, Queso Poblana ties her up and leaves her there, where we finally meet, officially, Craig, who is somehow related to Aunt P. Like, I didn't even believe it when I first saw that. Immediately right off the bat, Craig is portrayed to be really annoying and self-centered, only really caring about himself, but eventually throughout the story, he starts to soften up to Andy and actually help her with her goals. So after some annoying antics with Craig, we finally get to meet an actually likable character and another member to the squad, Mikey, who is shaped like a capital T, smart as hell, and apparently 8 years old. So after Craig bails on the gang, Mikey gives Andy the rundown on how the town works and how they prepare their meals using wrestling. Like, this dude is beating the shit out of this corner on the cob. So after a little coaching and guidance from Mikey, we learn about his backstory and learn how he wants to be a journalist for wrestling and not an actual wrestler, but his dad doesn't accept that. This parallels Andy's story, how she didn't want to be an accountant, but her parents accepted her for who she wanted to be. So after Craig the dumbass drops in and destroys the roof, Andy decides to step in for Mikey and actually defend him, leading to Dad throwing in the eldest son to whoop her ass. This is the best fight in the show. I mean, just listen to my past self and Sam watching this for the first time.
Oh, what the hell?
Bro, that
they
was
going crazy. Yo, got kicked. Oh my god.
I mean, enough said. After the gloriousness that was episode 4, we make it back to Aunt P's house where the gang basically begs for her to train Andy, where again the show continues to display its humor. So after assaulting an elderly woman again, Aunt P caves in and decides to teach Andy the perfect strike and gives her an ultimatum of performing 10 in a week. And I mean, look at this shit. If this doesn't scream anime, I don't know what does. So after a bunch of shenanigans and resetting the counter to 0 again, they decide to lock the fuck in and have a training montage to learn the perfect strike, leading to the counter to shift a little bit. Alright, this is the beginning of a very deep arc. I'm calling it arc because the show is so anime coded. It's mainly about these two guys called Rough and Tumble who got their asses whooped by Queso Babalana by the Perfect Strike, and they made a vow that they would learn the Perfect Strike and whoop her ass the next time they see her. Flash forward many years later, and Andy and the gang decide to stop by their dojo and see if they learned the Perfect Strike. They then get captured by two factions called the Finger and the Toe, wannabe Foot Clan ass soldiers. Fortunately, they get saved by an April O'Neil lookalike called Birdie. Don't forget about her, she's an important piece in this arc. Then one sad backstory later, we learned that Rumbleweed used to be a nice town where Rough and Tumble were actually liked until they lost the plot and it turned to shit. And me and Sam were also starting to lose the plot because this is very different from what the show was usually presenting itself as.
This episode feels way more longer than the last one.
I know, right? Because like it's bro, everyone turned into damn Sherlock Holmes with this shit. Maybe she's the master. I have a feeling like it's gonna do like a plot twist and she's the mastermind. And my past self is actually half correct with that. And Sam's crackpot theory will actually be the one that comes to fruition. Oh, that's your your prediction?
Yeah, that's the parents of her.
Maybe, but they would. I feel like they would have said like, "Oh, we had a child, but we lost them, and that's why we split up." Like that was the main catalyst or something.
I think it's coming up though. Personally,
maybe it could have. She does have the same hair as the mom. Now, this is where the story really gets deep, because now that we know Birdie actually is the mastermind, but not for the reason of just purely destroying the town. The reason she's doing it is because she wants to be noticed by Rough and Tumble, her actual parents. But her parents are neglectful as shit and they don't really care about her. That's why she did this, so that maybe she would get noticed. And that's another major theme that this show is always pushing, acceptance from the parents. Mikey wanting to get acceptance from his father to be who he wants to be, Andy actually getting accepted by her parents for who she wants to be, and unfortunately, Birdie who doesn't even get noticed by her parents. And this moment leads to Birdie's breaking point, where we finally get another wrestling match between Andy and the fucking Hulk. So after some crazy animation and Andy getting her ass fucking rocked, the fight takes to the skies and Andy pulls off one of the craziest reversals I've ever seen in this show. Oh, wait a second. Hey Sam, what is that move called again?
Oh, you must be talking about the Hurricane Rana. She's used that move to avoid the powerbomb. It's a professional wrestling move where that type of jump.
Yeah. Powerbomb, hair across, all that. Cool, thank you, Sam.
You son of a...
But even with the power of anime, it still doesn't help Birdie out. She still gets neglected and shunned by her parents, which is actually a pretty dark turn for her character. This episode really shows the dark side of wrestling and actually displays real human issues with child neglect and parental problems, which is very mature for a children's cartoon. So after the heaviness that was the last episode, we get a bit of reprieve with this episode, where we see a bunch of old faces and some new faces to have some classic wrestling. Where, again, the show displays its anime inspirations. Like, this one is undebatable. Look.
Animation? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's literally this. Bro, that was literally a reference.
Yeah.
That was literally a reference to Naruto.
It was.
Frame for
Naruto and
frame.
Sasuke?
Yes. I literally overlay it. That was exactly the frame. Oh, my God. As the title suggests, the Perm Gang finally return and decide to run it back with Andy after the upset that was the first episode. And this match is personal for the Perm Gang, as it changed them not just physically, because they're bald now, but it changed Immaculate mentally, because after he got bodied by Aunt P, it reminded of how weak he really is. So flashback to years ago. I'm not making that up, the show just says years ago. We get to see the backstory of Immaculate. Real name is Julius. And we learn that he was living at the bottom of the barrel in the slums, struggling for scraps, getting stolen from constantly. And after a while, he reaches his breaking point and decides that he's done being taken from and creates the persona of Immaculate, someone who can never be taken from, someone who can rise above the others and not be stepped on. And Keith David again gives another cold monologue about this.
People who have always had power, there's no story there. But those who know weakness, know what it means to be helpless. What they do with power now, that's interesting.
After that gloriousness, Immaculate decides to lock the fuck in and dons his visors once again.
So, what is the missing piece? Paprika?
No, Keith David, but it is something just as simple. Throughout this entire story, we've been following Andy's journey on how she wants to become like her idol, Aunt P. But the thing is, she's constantly trying to copy Aunt P's way of doing things, and she's not coming into her own truly as a wrestler. That's the missing piece. It's just like the saying from a deleted scene in Into the Spider-Verse. Don't do it like me, do it like you.
Honestly, Miles, don't do it like I did. You gotta do it like you.
That's the second time Spider-Man has been referenced. It goes to show how important that character is. And thanks to Peter's teachings, she finally performs the perfect strike. Not like Aunt P, but like her.
Please.
Is that it? That was you?
Oh, shit! Oh. Not only did that have me stunned, but that had even Aunt P herself stunned. So after witnessing the perfect strike for herself, Aunt P finally decides to train Andy, as she's clearly not ready, as it fucking destroyed her arm performing it, which sets up season 2. So if you're a big fan of anime like me, or a huge fan of wrestling like Sam, or both, then this is the perfect show for you to watch. So my final verdict of the show, I award it anime out of 10.